Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for amazing odds boosts every single day. Rudo, Jesse, AJ coming at you on a Thursday as the Avs off for the day. They will be playing again tomorrow, but for today they have 1 day off. So we
Did you even say what they did last night was playing?
That was a weirdly robotic laugh. AJ is actually
calculated.
Recording confirmed.
Yeah.
We figured it'd be a good time. We're getting down the stretch run of the regular season here to take a little bit of a look at specifically the Western Conference wild card, because barring actual catastrophe, the Avs should win the West and certainly are going to win the Central Division. So,
I just because of what AJ was talking about right before we started, I ended up on Dmitry Filipovich's Twitter, and he's got this Devon Taves compilation.
The whole piece that he wrote on elite prospects.
Yeah, and he's got it pinned on his
where
page.
He's just knocking pucks out of midair.
Dude,
yeah.
I've forgotten about this package, and it's just so fun to watch. Like, he makes so many amazing plays in this video.
The whole piece is excellent. And if you're not familiar with Dimitri's work, then you should definitely change that. For my money, he's one of my favorite writers in the entire business because he celebrates great hockey. And I think that's something that all of sports do poorly these days. I think we focus too much on tearing things down into little pieces instead of celebrating accomplishments. And I think most of his work is about, look at this really dope guy doing a bunch of really dope things you may not have noticed.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like almost educational, because it's one of those things where, I mean, how many times have we talked about it where it's like, oh, if you're a real like diehard hockey person, you really like that, or you're really gonna like this player, and he just does a good job of like highlighting all that stuff. Where I think there's only like 2 clips in this that lead directly to goals in this Taves clip, but like it's literally just 3 minutes of just defensive clinic. Like you could show that to kids growing up playing hockey and like do all of these things. It's textbook. I'm sorry, already took things way off the rails. I was reminded of that when I went to his page. I'm
always here for pro Filipovich.
Anyway, when we're looking at the Western Conference, a decent portion of it is already decided. We already mentioned the Avs. Calgary is certainly a lock to make the playoffs out of the Pacific. You have a hard time seeing anyone catching probably LA, probably St. Louis.
Well, St. Louis, no. Just because St. Louis, Minnesota, and Nashville are all within a point of each other. So the 2-3 matchup and that wild card spot. I'm excited to get into this conversation with you guys, because I'm like, strategically, would you rather finish in the first wild card spot and have a tough first round matchup against Calgary, but then play the 2-3 in the second round if you get through the Flames, versus going into the 2-3 in the Central and then getting Colorado in the second round?
Yeah.
I think if you're St. Louis, that's the route you'd rather go, honestly.
I mean, which team prefers Colorado in round 2?
I don't know that anybody does, but
that's what I'm saying. Like if you're St. Louis, I honestly don't know. I don't think Nashville can beat Calgary. Minnesota, and I guess we can get into. We will get into this. We can't get into this. Like the Minnesota one is just still so. I just don't know. We've seen teams bring in goalies in the past at the deadline, and it never really works out the way that you think it will. Fleury really hasn't been good this year. since that first run to the Cup Finals with Vegas, like honestly, his reputation in the playoffs kind of exceeds how he's actually performed over the last 2-3 years. So, I don't know. Minnesota, I'm not sure if they can get past Calgary either. Like if I'm St. Louis, I'm saying, yeah, finishing that first wild card spot's probably a realistic path to the Western Conference Finals for us. Because to your point, I don't know if anybody wants
it gets
Colorado.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants Colorado for sure, but it would take a decent amount. I know there's only a 1-point difference right now, but Minnesota has 3 games in hand on Nashville, and St. Louis has 2. So some losing would have to be done for either of them to drop out down to the wild card 1 spot. But I do not feel great about anyone in the Central matching up against Colorado. Even Minnesota with Fleury, like you mentioned, don't know if that really moves the needle enough for them to be a good matchup.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
are you really just picking through who do you want to beat if you're Colorado this year, or do you think there are some tougher matchups for them?
I think, like, honestly, for me, I think if you're the Avs, you'd rather play one of Nashville or Dallas. Okay. Not that I think that you can't, like, I fully agree with you, Rudo. Like, looking at the Central, I think the Avs are pretty clearly better than any of those 4 other teams that are in the picture. But, the thing with St. Louis, they're going to bruise you. They're going to beat you up. They're going to make you feel it.
They don't play that way anymore.
Yeah.
Like defensively, they're weaker than they've ever been, and they added Nick Leddy.
They just added Nick Leddy, all right?
Like they added Nick Leddy to a defense that was already softer than we're accustomed to. And like,
that's a good point.
I'm not trying to like bag on Nick Leddy here, but he's just not who he was. Like he got old. He got old and not very good.
Yeah.
So I just St. Louis, like, really, like, their offense is pretty good. And that's a series where you have to play really disciplined. You don't put them on the man advantage and beat them straight up at even strength. If you do that, you won't have a ton of problems with the Blues. And what do they do in net? Are they really going to play Billy Husso over Jordan Binnington? Or do they just give it to Binnington and just have a really, really, really short leash with them? Because they're only in a playoff picture because of Billy Husso.
Who would have thought that contract would have become a problem? Who saw that coming other than everyone but the Blues?
And like, I understand St. Louis is a significantly different team, but this is also a team that the Avs swept in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. Well, and a Blues team that take Brandon Saad off of Colorado and put him on St. Louis and add David Perron back in. Because remember, David Perron didn't play in the series.
Yeah. I understand it's different, but
yeah,
certainly a team that the Avs do understand and know how to handle to a certain extent. Nashville and Dallas, to me, are pretty easy first-round opponents for Colorado. I don't think they have the high-end talent, but
I'm not worried about Nashville one bit. Okay. Because Nashville has to play too similarly to Colorado to be successful. And where their big guns have to lead them, and Colorado's big guns are just better.
Yeah.
Even if and as a side note, can Avs fans please stop acting like Roman Josi doesn't belong in the Norris conversation? The guy is unbelievable. He's having an insane year. I know that it's largely driven by a 10-game stretch that he's had recently where he just went absolutely bananas. But, like, can we stop with this?
The dude absolutely deserves to finish second in the Norris vote.
I just, every time I see somebody talk about Roman Josi, you see an Avs fan roll in from some corner of the internet, like the Cale Makar disrespect signal went up and was like, Roman Josi doesn't belong in the same conversation as Cale Makar. And it's like, Roman Josi has had an insane season. Stop.
Bro, on TDS.
He's 100% in that conversation.
On TDSP just now, Peter Baugh said that Victor Hedman's probably still the best defenseman on earth, and people were like ready to come through the screen, and it's like the dude is crazy good.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you can be mad saying that Cale Makar is in the conversation with Victor Hedman. Like there's very good defensemen in this league. It's not just Cale Makar, although he is very good.
Yeah, I mean, Cale Makar is obviously. So anyway, I'm not worried about it because
so this is now a Cale Makar show.
That top end is what drives their bus, and the Colorado's top end is just going to be better. And it's funny because their matchups this year have been meaningless because you get the one game that was decided by a phantom too many men on the ice.
Yep.
You get the other game that Colorado played with 15 and a half people.
Yeah.
And several of them were AHL. Like Jordan Gross takes 3 penalties in that game. Had almost as many PIMs as ice time in a game that they had to play a third of with 5 defensemen anyway. So like their regular season matchups with Nashville have not meant anything so far.
Well, so and then here's the other thing is I've seen even just in this chat, a handful of people talk about, oh, well, Jake Ottinger has been really good against the Avs, UC Stars. These are very good goaltenders who can play really good games. It's part of why the NHL playoffs are so interesting because you play a 7-game series.
Yeah.
We all saw what happened. Darcy Kuemper, who has had a really good year with the Avs, everyone was excited about, partially because everyone saw what he did against the Avs a couple years ago. That is the same thing where you had a very good goaltender who was white hot, who had just stolen a 5-game series for Arizona.
Nashville.
Like, right. And you know, he played really well in those first couple games, but if the Avs, part of me thinks that this is kind of what happened to St. Louis last year, right? Like the Avs came out, punched them in the mouth, and when you suddenly are chasing this Avs team, whether it be within a game or in a series, it is really, really, really hard to play against them. The way that you've seen teams try to play the Avs, and you know what people talk about Vegas was, oh, they slowed it down. Oh, they got physical. Oh, you know, whatever. It's hard to do that when you're chasing and you're trying to make up ground. When you're actively just trying to keep the Avs from scoring, it's hard to score yourself. Their defense is improved. It's deeper. You've got goaltending that maybe you feel a little bit better about. It is going to be very hard for any goalie to steal a series from the Avs if they are that outmatched, like you're kind of like we're talking about here with Nashville, with Dallas, where, you know, I just don't know if those rosters match up. I don't know how much of a difference those goalies will be able to make, even if they play on the higher end.
It's a question of, am I worried about UC Saros getting hot? No, because have we watched Darcy Kuemper for the last several months, barring a major turn in his play, and like how he goes will be a huge part of the Darcy Kuemper story. Like him being great in the regular season, awesome. But how he goes in the postseason will be the Darcy Kuemper story, and I'm just not that concerned about Darcy Kuemper right now. He may be the one thing on the entire team that I'm like, dude's sick. He's locked in. He's ready to fuck. Let's just let it happen.
It's the problem with that conversation is you can replace UC Saros with literally the name of any goaltender and say, aren't you worried about this guy getting hot against the Avs?
Right.
Aren't you worried about Jake Ottinger stealing another game? Like Jake Ottinger stole a game in Denver. If the Avs play that way against Dallas in a 7-game series, I'm not worried about them winning the series.
Right.
I think it'll be over in 4 or 5 games.
So
like I'm just not, because I have full confidence in the other end of that. Are they going to be able to outplay the Avs enough and still beat Darcy Kuemper enough times? Like the Avs played a C game last night against a desperate Canucks team, It was 0-0 in the third, and Darcy Kuemper gave up 2 goals.
Yep.
One of which was on an elite shot, and the other is on a 2-on-1.
Yep.
Both off of turnovers.
Yeah, well, I mean, how they happen, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like Darcy Kuemper. It wasn't like either one of those goals were just like freebies that he just gave them. Like Brock Besser makes an unbelievable shot that no goalie is stopping.
Well,
and the other one is just a 2-on-1 where you're just like, hey, he makes the initial save and he doesn't get any help. So I'm fully confident in Darcy Kuemper being just as good as any goaltender that rolls into town.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Darcy Kuemper.
Okay. On that note, we are brought to you by Athletic Greens. I know, Jesse, is it you that drinks it, or is it Hannah that drinks it mostly?
She drinks most of it, but I have followed her lead. Because, like, look, here's the thing. Like, when you have your partner is doing all these, like, because, like, she started this whole, like, challenge, and she's walking every day and reading a book, and, like, her Athletic Greens are part of it. Like, like, I'm eating a cinnamon roll and she's drinking her Athletic Greens. I'm like, all right, well, I can't feel like a total piece of shit. So, yeah, like, bring it on over. And that was how it got me started on it. So, yeah, she drinks more than me. But, dude, I like them. Again, we're all team no coffee. It's a nice little boost in the morning.
There you go.
And it's better tasting than coffee.
I'd like to imagine Jesse just pours out a thing of Athletic Greens in his backyard and is like, yep, this is Hannah's portion. For you real human beings out there, though, that does have 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens.
So be sure to get that.
So be sure to get in on it. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So go to athleticgreens.com/avalanche to get your order in today. Take control of your health, especially with flu season going on right around now. It's a great thing for your immune system. You can get in there and feel better about your day when it comes to Athletic Greens, especially when you have to do things like be Blaze's birthday yesterday. So picked me up this morning a little bit. Also brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar. You can also get them at your local liquor store. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find them at a liquor store near you. They do the 2 for a brew promotion. It's been a little bit since the Avs have scored 2 in the first period. I think they have once in the past week or 2. But it'll come again, and you'll get yourself some free beers. So jump on it. Go over to breckbrew.com. Check out their 2 for a brew promotion to get yourself free beer, which is the best kind of beer from Breckenridge Brewery. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I know we're mostly looking at this through an Avs lens, but right now, maybe the only interesting playoff race in the entire league is for the second wild card spot in the West. Now, it's possible we could see someone catch a team like Edmonton at the back of the top 3 of the Pacific, but you're looking at least a certainly 3-team race for the second wild card between Dallas, Vegas, and Winnipeg, and you can probably even throw Vancouver in there.
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver's 3 points out. I know that there are games in hand considerations, but like they're 3 points out. I think for right now, it's fair to say Vancouver's part of that.
I think if Vancouver loses that game last night, you can probably say they're out of it, but they stayed alive. Got a game in hand on Vegas. Other than that, everyone else kind of has the advantage on them. But yeah, 3 points, you can talk yourself
doable,
into it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And look, the main reason this conversation has gotten so interesting is Vegas has more or less imploded over the past month or so and some of this is certainly just they've had really tough injury luck. Some of this is they're
down to their 3rd and 4th goaltenders because Brossoit is no longer even the backup anymore as of today. It's now Logan Thompson and Yuri Patera in net. And Logan Thompson is a dude that I think he was AHL goalie of the year last year. And he's a dude that I actually really, I think has a bright future. And having watched a handful of these games, it's obvious that future just isn't now. He's just not quite ready for the show. And even if he was like ready to be in the NHL, it's one thing to be ready to be in the NHL, and it's another to be the starting goaltender every single night on a team that absolutely has to win because it's in a playoff
expectations,
race.
Yeah.
Like it's like he has not gotten the luxury of how most young goalies get thrown into the league, where you get the backup job and you kind of work your way into it. And instead, he's thrown right into the fire and good luck, dude. And he's folding. And like the team in front of him is folding. Like I feel bad though, because I watched that loss to the Jets the other day. They outshot them 17-4 in the first period. They didn't give up a shot against till 5 minutes were remaining in that period. And they should have scored multiple goals. Like Hellebuck, they got goalied by Hellebuck, and they don't have the runway anymore
to get away with stuff like that.
Goals. Yeah, they have to win those games, and their finishing ability on their forward core is problematic. They've got nothing on defense outside of Alex Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore. Like they've got nothing there anymore. They are in deep trouble.
So I'll say let's pause. Did you include Edmonton in this wild card race?
No, I'm having them in the third spot in the Pacific. They could drop out for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, they're in there a little bit, but I want to talk about Vegas for just a second because AJ, I saw you. I think it was yesterday that you tweeted this. I've been fairly confident for the last month and a half that they would eventually figure it out and get back on track. And probably a wild card spot, but they'll get in. Like you said, man, everyone around them has games in hand. And, they're on the outside, and the math for them now doesn't really add up. Their fate is completely out of their hands. I don't know if they're going to get in anymore. I don't feel confident.
Look, yes, they've had significant injury issues. I think everyone knows that. They've still lost 12 of their last 18, and a significant portion of those two teams like Arizona to teams like I don't even know. They've lost them to some good teams too, but you've seen them.
That's a quarter of the season though.
Yeah. Right.
But here's my thing, man. Like in the last month where it's gone really bad for them, like they have had bad injury luck, really bad injury luck.
It's been brutal,
no doubt. But it's not like they haven't had top flight elite players in the lineup. And just using the
really, things went to hell for them when Jack Eichel got healthy.
Jack Eichel has returned and they've just fallen apart.
Does this not have the slightest bit of Matt Duchene trade vibes to it? Where the big name arrives in town and things just crumble around him. Like it is just, the parallels are a little weird.
And like the self-absorbed star is not the personality to try and help and lift everybody up around him.
Right. And now like Buffalo, like Buffalo's still really bad, but like they've had kind of an exciting couple weeks. Like they beat Eichel. They won in the outdoor game. They put together, I think, a 2 or 3 game win streak. Peyton Krebs is playing well. Alex Tuck is like being completely embraced by the entire city of Buffalo.
Get a point per game clip.
Right. And so it's just a little interesting, but like they've had top flight players in the lineup. And I go back to anecdotal evidence. I'm aware, but the bubble for the Avs, they get down 3-1 in a second round playoff series against a team that eventually went on to the Stanley Cup Finals. And they found a way to scratch out 2 games and push a third one to overtime. Like with 8 regulars missing, including both goalies. So like, it is just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you have the injury problems, but this does go back a little bit to what I think AJ, you brought up a couple of weeks ago on one of the shows of like, this franchise has never dealt with adversity. things have broken their way. Again, with the exception of the Game 7 penalty call, where then they again kind of collapsed in the face of adversity.
Just don't give up 4 goals in 5 minutes, bud.
Right. And
even then, though, you remember that because they tied the game in the final minute.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the 6-on, they tied that game, and then we're talking statistically, the team that ties the game to go into overtime typically wins it.
Yep.
And they rolled in and got beat by Barclay Goodrow going wide on them. What the they still blew. They were determined to blow that game.
And so you are starting to step back a little bit and be like, this team is maybe just kind of crumbling again in the face of adversity. And there's been so much movement in that locker room over the last couple of years. There's been so many new faces brought in. The only remaining members from that original Misfit, Island of Misfit Toys team is what they even refer to as the Misfit line, which has dropped off a lot. William Karlsson isn't scoring the way he's not scoring 40 goals again, which we all knew would happen. And it's just, you've messed with the leadership core over and over again. You keep bringing in, it might be one of those things where it's like, you've got too many Chiefs, there's too many big names. Who's the leaders there? Is it Jack Eichel, former captain? Is it Alex Pietrangelo, former captain? Is it Mark Stone, current captain? Is it Max Pacioretty, former captain? These are all guys that had huge roles with their teams. They were the guy, the voice. And now they're just being told oh yeah, go in there. And oh, by the way, we already had somewhat of a leadership core established. I think this is just, they messed with it too much and they're dealing with adversity and no one knows who should speak up.
It does feel like a new position for that franchise. I agree with you there. It doesn't feel like something they've really experienced before. I do have to ask, do you guys think Vegas makes it or do you think they miss?
I think they miss.
I think this
goaltending and the games in hand problem are just two things that don't appear to be. I think those are just a bridge too far, man. And they've been shut out 4 times in the last month. It was one thing when they got shut out in back-to-back games by Calgary and Colorado.
Yep.
But then they give up. They had a stretch where they only scored 2 goals against Ottawa, 1 goal against Philadelphia, and then 1 goal against Buffalo. Okay, and then they turn around and they get shut out in back-to-back games by Minnesota and Winnipeg. I'm not on that train anymore.
Well, and look, I don't want to fully rehash the Dodonov stuff.
And what? Now he has to play for you, and you think you're going to get a motivated hockey player after that?
Yeah.
Would you be?
And
dude, I would be 100% preserving my health.
Yep.
I would be making business decisions on every single shift.
Dude, seriously. And the larger scope of that is there's now been a few instances of this Vegas management team really kind of giving the middle finger to players. I mean, Marc Andre Fleury, the face of their franchise, maybe the most popular guy in the sports scene in Nevada. And they traded him for nothing. And he found out on Twitter.
Yeah. Nate Schmidt the year before, who was
thank you. I knew there was another
popular,
yeah,
insanely popular in that locker room, and moved him.
Openly said he wanted to stay
unceremoniously and just dumped him because they got Pietrangelo and then they were not cap compliant, and so they had to do something, and so his name just dangled out there in the weeds for a day or two, and he was just in no man's land.
Yeah.
And then he gets dumped to Vancouver, and it was just man, you just treated like a really, really popular dude. And it's one thing to be popular with a fan base. It's another entirely to be popular with your teammates.
In the room, yeah.
And be treated that way, because now you've got 3 examples of them treating players really not very well. And if they'll do it to a guy of Fleury's caliber, come on.
Right.
Do it to anybody. Yeah.
Well,
Like, come on. Why would you ever feel like you're going to be different?
Right. And you know, they've signed a lot of big name free agents over the last couple of years, and it's Vegas, right? And everyone's aware of the atmosphere and all that stuff in Vegas. And I think there's a lot of reasons why, you know, players have signed there over the last couple of years, but I mean, like, you seriously may be working your way out of being a destination, because why would you want to go there and risk having everything uprooted at the drop of a hat? And then the other part of this is I keep hearing people say, oh, well, maybe a team like Arizona will come and trade for Dadonov if he's not on, if they aren't on his list. And like, let's say Arizona is on his list. I know Dadonov doesn't, or Dadonov, however you want to pronounce it, doesn't have a ton of say in that. But talk about screwing a guy over. Like, I really don't know how you bounce back from that, from just like an optics standpoint. If you go through this whole thing with Dadonov and then trade him to a team that he's not allowed to play for until next year just to try to get out of your cap troubles, it's just, this is part of the reason why, and I know people argued that what they did with Stone and the LTIR is fully allowed, and I get that, but this right here is exactly why it felt so gross from the moment it happens, because they acquired a player they couldn't afford, knowing that the only way they kept everyone together was to do something with LTIR, and now they're in a position where it completely is bit them in the ass.
100% made their own bet on this one.
Yeah.
And like the injuries, it's like, look, for the on ice thing, man, like the injuries are totally legit. Like, this is a train wreck. That, like, they've had very little control over the injury part of this. They got a little cute though, and it really does, it really does feel karmic.
Yeah.
And you just knew, like, sports are cyclical.
Nobody
lives like this. And you know, the funny thing about Vegas is that and like the idea that Abs fans, and bringing this back to our topic today, that Abs fans are like, oh, I don't want to play that. And I'm like, please, like, if Vegas is going to make it, please let them get that spot and let it be Colorado Vegas.
Yep.
Because I think it could have the same kind of exorcism effect that beating Columbus did. You remember in the bubble?
Yeah.
When Tampa Bay and Columbus played that 5 overtime game?
Yep.
And it was like, why can't these guys handle the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Yeah.
And they beat them, and they have not looked back since.
Yep.
And I think it could have the exact same kind of effect for Colorado. But also, I just want to watch that fan base suffer. Like that's a team that legitimately should have had 3 Cup Finals appearances in its first 4 years.
Yep. And it's
because they blow a series against Montreal, they blow a series against Dallas.
Yep.
They were the more talented team in each of those. And like flaming out in the conference finals is like, oh, life is hard, right? But like, are you for real? They should have won both of those series, and the fact that they could, who knows what happens in the Cup Finals, right? Like Vegas, Tampa Bay could have been sick last year. It could have been an actual series instead of the walkthrough that it ended up being for the Lightning. But God, in both years, both Lightning championships. Jesus, make it easier for them. Why don't you? But like they could. It could have that kind of an exorcism effect on Colorado, where they're like, all right, we got through these dudes. We got through them. Now we have Nashville or Minnesota or St. Louis in round 2. Like, let's go blow the doors off these guys and not look back.
Yeah.
And I think I think that would be a lot of fun just to get it. Like, pick the number 1 team that you're afraid of in this wild card race. That's the team that I want them to play.
There you go. I like the answer. This podcast is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want to bet on it, If you're a believer in Vegas, they're plus 220 to make the playoffs right now.
Really?
Yep.
Are we doing DraftKings right now? Are we talking bets?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've been following along the Slack channel, the company Slack today.
Not
But
really.
the hunt for 69 is on. If you go on DraftKings and you look at the over-under totals for the Rockies win total, I think it's at 68.5.
Ooh, got to get it up by one.
You got to mash that over, son. You got to mash that over. And so the hunt for 69 is officially on. Go Rockies.
There you go.
I'm heading there right now.
About to get the nicest season.
And then when they get to 69 in like the first week of September, then I don't know what we cheer for. But the hunt for 69, that's where we at.
Go get in on that. If you need a little bit of extra cash, you can sign up with a new account and use code DNVR. When you do, bet $5 on any March Madness game. If you pick the correct winner of that game, you get $200 in free bets, which you can go do 69 nice things with if you so desire. Jump on it. Go join DraftKings today with that DNVR code. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. To DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Also, our party bus sponsor, Avaca TV. You can jump over there when you're not riding the party bus down to Ball Arena to watch a game in person. Just $25 a month here in the Denver metro area to watch on your TV without having to jump through all the hoops. You just have altitude. You turn on your TV. It's right there, just like watching used to be before all this Comcast nonsense. Super easy, super reliable. They also have AT&T Sports Network, so you can watch the Rockies get 69 wins, and some national channels too. So go check out Avaca TV today if you haven't. It's a cheaper option than DirecTV or anything like that. And like I said, it actually has altitude on my Comcast. So great way to watch Avs games. Go get in on it. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook. Who are you taking to make the wild card spot then? It seems like both of you are out on Vegas getting it. Is it Dallas's to lose at this point?
Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
just with the games in hand.
Yeah.
Just because we've got some weird voodoo shit where they rip off a great 10 games and then they're mediocre.
Yep.
And they fall back to earth, and it's just you just don't want any piece of them during their little mini buzzsaw phase. And then catch them on the down, and you're golden.
Eat them alive.
But they just they're just I don't get Dallas at all. They don't make sense to me. I'm not taking I'm not taking. Selfishly, please, the Jets. Jets, Colorado in round one, so I can cover the games up here just fine, and I can be here, and my passport can get here. My new passport can get here. And I can have the most awkward living situation where Z and I just don't speak to each other for a week. And I'm physically still here. And then Colorado sweeps them and we can start talking again and I can go home. Not in a body bag. So, like, selfishly, please, Jets. But I watch most of their games these days. I don't think they've got the goods.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're just not good enough. They don't play within a structure. I don't think they're very well coached. Their puck management is fucking horrible. They are brutal with the puck in their own zone. It's just so casual all the time. Just like a team-wide laissez-faire approach to puck management. And I don't think they've got the goods. They don't play with nearly enough urgency. And I know that they're in this thing, but I don't think the Jets have it. And I don't, for the record, I don't think the Canucks do either. All this talk of, like, they won their Stanley Cup last night. If either of you looked at anything Vancouver media related today?
I knew better than to do that.
Dude.
Oh, dude. You should have heard him last night in the press box. It was 2 games in a row Edmonton and Vancouver, where their media was talking about the game. What a game. This is, oh my God, this is an outstanding game. It's like, bro, this game sucks. Like, is this really what a dope game looks like to you guys? Like, holy fuck.
I thought parts of the Edmonton game were sick and a lot of fun, but like the second period.
Erase the whole second period.
Yeah. But other than that, like I liked that game. The game last night was balls.
Yeah, that game sucked.
It was balls. It was not interesting or fun to watch.
I'm sitting next to Ryan Bolding now, in the press box, old friend of ours, now with NHL.com. But so we get to the start of the second intermission, and he's got a much stricter deadline than we do. And he's sitting there and he goes, I don't know what to write. My pieces are supposed to be event based. And nothing has happened.
Yeah.
There hasn't been like a crazy, like Darcy Kuemper giving that puck away and then having to make that diving save. Like, and it was a nice diving save. Like that was like that. And then Cale Makar just completely wasting Quinn Hughes on that reverse. Those were like the most notable things that happened after 40 minutes.
Nothing came of it.
Like, right. And it's like, yeah, that game last night was
not a banger. Definitely not a banger.
I don't even have words for it because that's what it
is. So anyway, they've treated last night like their Stanley Cup. Like they're like, oh my God, the Canucks have turned the corner. They're for real now. This is what's up. Their attitude. They showed so much heart and character and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, like let's see if that keeps up though for the next 17 games, and then if they can do it again in the first round against the same team.
Yep.
Like let's see how this goes. I'm really iffy on Vancouver.
Yeah,
I just think Dallas is like the team that I don't want to say makes me nervous, but like they're in the best position. I think that they're the most complete of those teams that are competing. They're the most experienced, so they're comfortable. They've been fighting for playoff positions for years now. Like this wild card race is exactly where they eat, so they're perfectly comfortable. And I just I think that they are good enough to get there.
Well, and
I don't know if they're doing anything if they get there though.
Right, the teams that we're talking about is trying to get into this last playoff spot, regardless of them playing the Avs or not. They're all flawed teams in their own way. So you basically step back and you say, okay, well, which ones have the fewest flaws? And I know people are going to roll their eyes, but one of the things that you said there, AJ, is part of the reason why I also give it to the Stars, the experience. They have done this exact thing. This core has done this several times. They're getting good enough goaltending from Jake Ottinger. I just, and there isn't the expectation like Vegas, you watch those games and it's almost starting to become like desperation in a bad way, where they're doing stuff and it's like, that's not you playing for your life. That's just you playing dumb. And
they've never had to in the regular season before.
Right. And Dallas, I think, just is used to being in a situation like this where, hey, we're just trying to get in. And once we get in, who knows what happens. And I think they're going to be the ones who have the least kind of like worry over the last 3-4 weeks here. Cause it's like, we'll get in. We have the games in hand. They just don't feel the pressure. And they shouldn't feel the pressure. And I just think that experience, all that stuff is going to factor in.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas made their decision, right? When they decided not to trade anybody, when they extended Pavelski, they said, hey, look, we're going for this. We think we can make it. And it hasn't been the easiest road for them either, but they also have the most direct path to the wild card spot. Whereas, if I'm being honest with you, I think it's a pretty far cry for Vancouver to even be in the conversation.
Yeah, they'd have to go on a tear here.
Yeah. Winnipeg, look, as we said earlier in the show, they have a goaltender where it's like, if he gets hot, anything can happen. Yeah, to have more faith in Hellebuck doing that than some of the other goaltenders you're talking about here. But
and then
AJ doesn't, but
not
I
this
do.
year.
Here's the other thing too, where I think you just kind of default have to give it to Dallas. They are the only team that controls their own destiny.
Yep. If they win out, they are in. It's
right.
that simple.
Right. If all four of those teams, and obviously scheduling this not possible, but for the sake, if all four of those teams won every game that they have between now and the end of the season, Dallas is in.
I mean, they're probably all of them are in if they win out. But you're going to see Nashville get jumped. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. Which would be bananas if you had four teams all win out.
Which can't even Vegas and Vancouver play each other like 3 times. So it's impossible.
But yeah, so I mean, all Dallas has to do, and this is a hilarious blanket statement, and I know that. All Dallas has to do is win. They don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. And to your point, Rudo, like they will get some scoreboard help on some nights.
Yep.
All they've got to do is win their own games.
Yeah. I tweeted it out the other day that those 3 or 4 games ago that it used to be Vegas was the team in that driver's seat, and they've played their way out of it where they now need help to make the playoffs. So sometimes you gotta take advantage of your opportunities, and right now Dallas is the one with the opportunity.
Yep.
So
I mean, 16 games to go for Vegas.
Yep.
Like they're like points wise, they're there, but it's not as big a runway as it sounds.
Yeah. I mean, you lose 2 or 3 games in a row. If they lose to Nashville tonight, that runway runs out real quick.
You win 6 games in a row though, and
yeah, it 100% could go the other way too.
Thing just totally looks different.
Yep, that's why they play the games instead of just saying, "All right, playoffs are decided now."
Is there one team that you would want because I could talk myself into all kinds of different angles. Dallas and Vegas have playoff redemption for Colorado. Winnipeg, obviously, it's the quietest week of my life. And then Vancouver is I don't know. Cale Makar gets to put one last nail in the coffin of the Makar conversation. That's the only one that doesn't have a very interesting storyline. But is there just a hockey series that you would really like to see between those teams? Any of those, Colorado against any of them?
I think all those teams are pretenders, if I'm being honest. But I would want the Dallas series. I think the Avs win that series in 4 or 5. I think everyone goes, turns out Avs Dallas isn't the same when they aren't playing a third string goaltender.
And that's mine because I think the Vegas series would be fun, to your point, AJ, of you get to overcome that. But the Dallas bubble series, that is one of my, with all the history that the Avs have, that really is one of my big what if moments. It's if the Avs are fully healthy in that series, or even remotely closer to full health, how much different is that series? Are they able to get out of that round and probably set themselves up to go to the Stanley Cup Finals? And that's just one that I always felt gypped out of a bit. And I do have some of the late 90s, early 2000s Avs stars, just still in my brain.
I'm so sick of losing to the Stars in the playoffs in my life.
In 7 games, I just can we not do this once? I do think there is a little bit to, and look, Colorado, Vegas, we will get another crack at that. As a hockey community, we will get that series again over the next couple of years.
It's going to be pretty funny. They're going to be all old and broken down, and Colorado will still be in their prime. The Stars, will still be prime aged.
But it's just the Dallas one, there is just a weird bit of, can we get a real series between these two teams and not one where the teams have been sequestered for 2 months? Yeah. Right. And the Avs are down both goalies and 6 roster players. It's like, so the Dallas one, but honestly, man, if I'm the Avs, give me any of them.
Yeah, I think the whole West is pretenders if I'm the Avs.
Oh, this year for sure. I really don't think any of those teams are any good.
Yep. So,
on any given day, but
of course,
in a 7-game series, man,
I don't think any team stacks up. Yep.
Especially because we haven't even seen and I cannot stress this enough. We have not seen a full power Avalanche team
yet
for any stretch this season.
Yep.
For any stretch, we have not seen a 100% Avalanche lineup. For any stretch. It's been a game here, game there, little pot here, little pot there. Not for one significant stretch of the season have we seen a fully healthy Avalanche lineup. And that's just hoping, no offense to Ryan Murray, but if he has to be the sacrificial injury to get all the other guys healthy and to get them otherwise ready to go in the postseason for game 1, girl, please. Can they win a game in 3? Can they win a series in 3? Because that's what it's gonna feel. I just can't shake the feeling that whoever their first round opponent is, Daryl Sutter's it's gonna be a waste of 8 days. It's gonna be a waste of 6 days.
Just don't show up to the arena for game 4.
If they seriously get all of the pieces back, obviously that requires a little bit of luck. Landis, all the recovery times have to go well, and Bowen Byram has to decide he's ready to rock. If those things happen, man,
watch out.
If they don't, if the roster that played last night is the one that plays in game 1 of the postseason, they're vulnerable.
Sure. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts, Jesse?
Nope.
Okay.
One other thing.
Nailed it.
Megan has been working really hard on a really great piece about life in the AHL during the trade deadline. It's done. It's ready to go. I'm going to post it as soon as the show is finished. So be sure to go and find that on the website.
There you go. Go read the dopeness from Megan. We are going to get out of here for the day. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. We appreciate all of you a ton. Be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. We are back tomorrow with the pregame, postgame, usual goodness for a game day. So be sure to tune in to all of that, and we will talk to you then.